All right, man. This is episode number 85 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is being recorded on Saturday, November 11th, 2023 at 12:33 p.m. It is a frigid day outside. It's at least fairly cold in here. I haven't been outside today yet. I have no plans to. There's far too much to get done here in terms of watching and writing and reading as well. There's no need to go out and just kind of milly around, just sort of do nothing, man. Just drive around and do nothing. There's just no point to that. I will not participate in that. I will only focus on getting the tasks at hand that need to be completed, including recording this episode. I hope you guys have been enjoying the third act of the year so far. There have been so many great films that have been released and will continue to be released into the rest of the year as well as into 2024. There's going to be a lot of films that will be mentioned in terms of Academy Award nominees. So there's going to be plenty to come up. I was talking to somebody recently about some predictions at what we think will be nominated, for what, just different kind of categories, different films. And I won't go into it now here because I don't have the thing off the top of my head. But I just think about some films, seeing some trailers that are coming out. There are some films that kind of look like they'll probably get nominated for some stuff, regardless of their quality or not. But either way, it's just always just like a fun time of the year to watch so many of these films. And speaking of, here I am. Not only I forgot to silence my telephone, I forgot to silence my computer. Everybody tries to contact me when I record these episodes. It is weirdly coincidental. But I mean, when it comes to new films, man, it was I was talking about a lot of new films that were coming out in the rest of the year, and very happy to report that two new films from two of my favorite filmmakers have both been real highlights of the year so far. I won't go too in depth into them, but I'll just briefly mention them. I yesterday saw Alexander Payne's new film, The Holdovers, starring Paul Giamatti, and let me get the other two actors here because I want to make sure I credit all three of the primary actors in this because he is the main character in the film. He has the most screen time, but also starring in the film as well is Divine Joy Randolph and Dominic Sessa, and it is what a fantastic film, man. It's one of these films where 5 minutes in, I realized that okay, you've got me immediately hooked. You see great films that they take a little bit of time to kind of get their hooks into you, and then but it pays off, it works out. But this film, I mean, right from the very opening with the 1970s sort of logos they have, like Focus Features and Miramax, and they have like the MPA rating. It's all great, but then you actually get a really just solid character drama comedy as well. And this is directed by Alexander Payne, written by David Hemmingson, and it's just consistently funny. It's got a lot of heart, a lot of emotion. It never becomes melodramatic when it very easily could have. It kind of dances with some melodrama, but never fully kind of submits to that. But gosh, this is just, I mean, one of Alexander Payne's strongest films. I mentioned before, I think this may have been my favorite of his work since Sideways, but I also do want to rewatch Nebraska because I last saw that in 2013 when that came out theatrically. But since he's also done The Descendants, and I didn't see his last film, Downsizing, which I heard not so great things about, but I still was curious to see it nonetheless. But this is just one of these films, man, where I was just so happy to watch, man. The audience that I saw with, I go to the cinema earlier in the day to kind of avoid the crowds and avoid sort of the nonsense of obnoxious kind of audiences. For certain kind of films, you don't really want to, But this is a great audience film. I mean, the audience that I saw it with, they were really enjoying it. It was cool to see they filmed a lot of it pretty close by, so you could kind of hear murmurs from the people in the auditorium about, they recognize this location they've been to and this and that. And it's just such a cozy, just really fantastic film, man. This is one of the strongest films I've seen this year, one of my favorites I've seen this year, and I'm really looking forward to revisiting this. This is definitely a film I'm looking forward to showing my parents. I think they're really going to like this one. And on the flip side of that, a film that I would have liked to have seen theatrically, but unfortunately just wasn't playing theatrically around. It got a little bit of a limited release, but thankfully, now I was talking to somebody about this film, and I asked, when is this coming to Netflix? And they said they think in a couple weeks. So I was like, all right, man. So last night I'm watching some films, and I happened to just go on Netflix. I really don't tend to browse. I have many lists of films that I need to watch. So the idea of just sitting there and browsing and just wasting your life away trying to, maybe I'll watch this film, no, maybe I'll watch that film, it's just not going to happen. But I open up Netflix, and I saw that David Fincher's new film, The Killer, happened to be streaming, and was such a pleasant surprise because I was not aware it was already streaming, and I started this fairly late at night, so I did fall asleep about a half hour in, but not because the film wasn't engaging, just because I was watching this late at night. If I had known that it was available, I would have watched it much earlier. But this is a very excellent film as well. I mean, it's David Fincher really confidently directing this sort of noir crime film with a great performance by Michael Fassbender, who is just consistently proven to be such a phenomenal actor. And he's one of these guys who, I get they got to make, a lot of actors got to make the big Hollywood films. I know he was in like all those X-Men films and all that, but to me, I feel like he's an actor who needs a really good director to be able to really kind of show him into a really good performance, because he is such a strong actor, and I feel like he is somebody who is his talents have not been recognized to the fullest extent because he gets sidetracked with just a lot of nonsense films, man. And I understand, but when I look at stuff, when I don't want to, I'm not gonna be a jerk. I don't want to name any films, but I just look at some of his filmography and I'm just like, I don't know. I know you got to pay the bills and all this, but this is just nonsense. But this was an excellent film as well. I would say the first 15 minutes or so are some of Fincher's strongest directing, man. Michael Fassbender's narration is so great, and the way that the film kind of caps off. Now, I didn't know anything about this film when I watched it. I saw maybe some screenshots, but I didn't see any footage. I had absolutely no idea what it was about. I saw the poster, Michael Fassbender, the killer. That's all I knew about it, man. So when you get to, I don't know what the trailer or the plot gives away or anything like that, so I'll do the same. I won't say anything. But when the first 15 minutes kind of cap and you get to the end, and then it really kind of goes right into the film, it was just like, wow, what a fantastic prologue this was, because this is a film that's separated into chapters, so you have about 5 or so chapters or so, as well as an epilogue, and great performances all around. Michael Fassbender really carries the entire film, but some other actors pop up along the way, Tilda Swinton and Charles Parnell, and just the violence is really really well directed. There's not a lot of action in the film. It's really not that kind of film. It's far more of just a crime sort of noir, but there's one scene of hand-to-hand combat that's really solidly directed, and just a really exceptional film, and I really really like this film. This is, David Fincher is a filmmaker who I don't love every one of his films, and but he always does something totally interesting, I will say. Even his last film, Mank, I wasn't totally big on. There's a lot I liked about it, but it didn't ultimately work for me. But there's still a lot there that I thought was really well done. And I never watched his show Mindhunter because I don't watch any television, but from what I hear, it's a very good show as well. But available on Netflix. If you have the opportunity to see it theatrically, I think you should. I think a film like this is good to see in a theater, but, we don't all have that opportunity, including myself. So either way, I think this is based off a book as well. I don't know. Either way, excellent stuff. It's on Netflix now. Give it a watch. It's really good stuff. I think it's under 2 hours too, which is nice. So it's sort of like in and out, not too, it never drags, it's all well directed. It's just really excellent stuff, man. Really, really like this film. So yeah, it's great to see, we got these just really solid filmmakers. Even last week when I was talking about Priscilla with Sofia Coppola, which is a film that I liked a lot. It's just, we're getting some really great films this year. A lot of these films are going to be popping up, I'm sure, for getting Academy Award nominations, and all that good stuff. So now's a good time to check out a lot of these films, so you're not rushing at the last second. When the time comes and like say people are talking about, oh, this film, that film, you don't be rushing around to, try to watch all these films all at once. You'd be, good to kind of spread them out and sort of, get a good feel for what might be on your radar, what might not be on your radar, that good stuff. So either way, both recommended films nonetheless, The Holdovers and The Killer right here. But anyways, now that the 1993 list is over, and I'm now on to the next one, it has been really nice to get kind of back into the flow of things in terms of watching stuff, because there's plenty to be caught up on. A lot of films have been ordered, been bought, a lot of films that are coming in the mail, so there's just so much to do, but it's also nice to kind of build up a lot of that, then go right back into it, man. It's just been really fantastic the past couple weeks. I look at my TCM kind of recordings, and there's just so much there that I have to get to, and a lot of cool stuff too either way. It's sort of just like finding any way to come across these films and watch them and all that, and get recommendations, all that good stuff. It's just so fantastic. If you're able to get a lot of these sort of recommendations from online, or people that you trust or anything like that, to kind of turn each other on to any kind of art, any kind of film, really. And actually, speaking of 1993, one of the films that coincidentally I ended up watching that I mentioned was on a lot of 1993 lists, but technically is 1994. Coincidentally, it came up to watch, so I took the opportunity to do so. And from 1994, I watched the film. Now, I don't know where this film is from. I think this might be an English film. I don't completely know. But let me pull this up here. I think I'd have this prepared now, but of course I don't. Might be a U.S. film. Actually, I have no idea. Either way, I guess it doesn't totally matter in terms of specificity for the content of the film. But I did watch the film Clean Shaven, directed by Lodge Kerrigan, starring Peter Green. It's a short film. I mean, it's a short feature film. This is only about 79 minutes, and it's great, So if you're like, oh, I gotta watch something, but I don't have so much time on my hands, well, man, I got good news for you. This is 79 minutes, and what a fantastic film this was. Lodge Kerrigan is a filmmaker whose work I'm not totally familiar with. Let me see, right? He does primarily a lot of TV now, and he's done stuff like some big shows like Tulsa King and The Girlfriend Experience, The Americans, Bates Motel, a lot of shows that he'd do a handful of episodes of. But he also did, speaking of 1993, he did a film, his follow-up film, Claire Dolan, which is from 1998, which I wish I had watched for 1998 if I had seen this first. But that stars Katrin Cartledge from Naked. She's one of the main characters in that film. Naked was a very good film, by the way. That was a rewatch for me, and that was a very excellent rewatch. Big fan of that film. But Clean Shaven, it's a very, really just solid, quiet, uncomfortable film, and you have this main character played by Peter Green. He's playing this character, Peter, and, you get the idea that he's schizophrenic, but they don't, to my knowledge, I don't believe they ever flat out say it, but then you look at the plot synopsis, it says after a man suffering from schizophrenia is released from a mental institution, he attempts to get his daughter back from her adoptive family, and that's sort of the plot, but it's sort of far more about being kind of with this character. There are many quiet sequences where we're really just not even necessarily in the character's head, but feeling just kind of trapped with him. You get the feeling of just a really kind of unstable sort of feel. Early on, there's a sequence that is really well directed, I'd say, where the camera sort of shifts away from a violent action, and it goes back to the main character, and we go from there. The entire film feels like kind of walking on a tightrope in terms of you're just kind of waiting for this character to sort of go off the edge and really kind of lose it. There's always something, what it feels like, underneath the surface. A lot of very unsettling imagery. The soundtrack as well. It's always just on. It always has you just on the edge, man. And the ending as well, I think, is really exceptional. There's a very memorable sequence at the end of this film with this character that really stuck with me. I would also say that it was interesting. I'm watching this film, and early on they're talking about special effects, and I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe there's like a couple images here and there, but I was really surprised in a positive way of just how grisly some of the imagery in the film is. There's one sequence when they're looking at a dead body, and the body has been totally kind of mangled up and cut, and they're like peeling some of the skin back, and it all looks really fantastic. And there's one scene in particular that was really well done where I won't give it away, but basically there's some self-mutilation that I was curious how much they would actually show of it, because I don't know how, I think the budget on this was like, what, 600,000 or something like that, and watching that sequence, with how far they end up going with it, it's very, makes you squirm in your seat, but it's incredibly well done. I mean, I can think of if this was considered for a 1993 film, if this would, make the list, and I don't know, really. I'd have to kind of give it some time. I think if I watch this at the end, one of the last things I'd watch, I'd have to really think about it, but if I watched it earlier, then I probably would have to really kind of sit on it more, because even towards the end, when it comes to these lists and stuff, man, it's sort of like the list is always changing. I mean, when it comes to the way that I do a lot of these, I mean, there's a couple films that I know are going to be on there. I'm looking back on my 1993 list, and even right off the bat, I'm fully aware that, like, Schindler's List is going to be on there, man. I mean, it's one of my favorite films. I'm aware The Untold Story is going to be on there. Other films may come and go, because even at the last second, I was talking about that film, The Cement Garden, which was really great as well, which just at the very last second I exchanged it for A Perfect World. But The Cement Garden was a total surprise. I wasn't even familiar with it. Directed by Andrew Birkin, starring Charlotte Gainsbourg, Andrew Robertson, and Charlotte Gainsbourg is I think Andrew Birkin is her uncle or something, I believe, not her father, because obviously, related to Jane Birkin and all that, and Serge Gainsbourg, who I wasn't even aware worked on, I think I may have mentioned this last time, I have no idea. I was not aware that he not only worked on 2001, but some of the sequences were, in the third act of the film, when it's very kind of, what's what I'm looking for? The Beyond the Infinite sequence in the third act of the film, some of that, I mean, not only did he work on the film, but some of those sequences shot were actually done by him, which was just really, I'm reading it and I'm like, wow, I've never heard this before. I had no idea he not only worked on it, but that's him behind the camera, man. It's so fantastic. I don't even think I talked about that book on the show or not, but that was just that was one of my favorite books I've read this year, man. It's such a, let me pull up the full name of it here. I typed in Spacey. 2001 A Spacey Odyssey. Yeah, there you go, man. I'm losing my mind here. But the book, here, I got it right here. Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick, Arthur C. Clarke, and the Making of a Masterpiece. Written by Michael Benson, is just, if you're even at all a fan of Kubrick or 2001, I feel like most people probably are, both those, man. It's sort of like, this is essential reading. This was just one of the most enjoyable books I've read this year, really ever. It's just such a great kind of look into the making of just a total masterpiece, and how you just sort of Kubrick having this sort of control that would just never happen now. It's completely insane, sort of how much he was able to get away with and continue to get away with, with his, the films that he would do after the fact and all that. It's just completely amazing to think of, kind of the free reign that he had a lot of this time, while also still battling a lot of the studio executives and producers and all that, making this very kind of surreal, avant-garde at times, quiet, sort of epic film. It's just really great. I can't recommend that book enough, man. It's completely brilliant. But no, The Cement Garden as well, I think is been one of my favorite discoveries of the year so far. I mean, honestly, on any other day, it may have taken the number 10 spot on the list, but it was sort of either or. I think both films are really terrific in their own right. It's a very dark, moody kind of film with, following this family unit in this house that's kind of, they're really on their own and all that. I won't give too much away of it, but yeah, I'm really, really big fan of The Cement Garden. I thought it was a fantastic film. But speaking of books that I had talked about a little while ago, that I'll wrap up here. Let me get a sip of this beverage and I'll talk about it briefly, because I won't go into it too much more, because I've already kind of talked about it enough as is. But I did finally finish reading Pure Filth by Jamie Gillis and Peter Sotos. I didn't realize it was primarily Jamie Gillis writing the book. That's the thing, is that Peter Sotos has about 20 or so pages. That's all introduction. And then the rest is transcript, and then Jamie Gillis' introduction to a lot of these, to the transcripts themselves, talking about the women involved with it, talking about sort of, kind of the headspace of the time. But either way, I think it's a really, really fascinating book, man. It's one of these things where, I'm not super familiar with Jamie Gillis's. I know him I don't know him. I know him primarily for his, being in just a lot of adult films that I was already aware of as is that he happened to be in. So films like Corruption or like Winter Heat and all that. But like some of his Gonzo stuff I wasn't super familiar with before, so I ended up looking up a lot of that stuff, kind of went down the rabbit hole of a lot of that kind of Gonzo sort of pornography and stuff, and watching some of the stuff that was available online. I ended up watching a handful of like, On the Prowl and what were the other ones called? The book's in the other room. I should have just grabbed it, but I didn't. Actually, I probably, I'm going to pause this for 1 second, because I will go ahead and grab that book. So, give me one moment. All right, and I'm back. Just grabbed the book. And I did want to say as well, I can't for the life of me remember if I mentioned this before, but better safe than sorry, that I discovered that the book is actually still available to purchase. It's available to purchase for $150 online from, I think, feralhouse.com. If you go on there, you can go ahead and purchase this for $150, an autographed copy if you're interested at all. I was not even aware this was still technically in print, but it is there to purchase if you feel that you would like to own a copy. And if you're a fan at all of any kind of extreme sort of transgressive filmmaking or any of this sort of, kind of pornography, man, I think this is definitely an essential read because, yeah, I mean, it is primarily transcripts, but as well, I think that Jamie's sort of insight into a lot of the women that he worked with, sort of his, what I mentioned before is his, how am I going to phrase this? His questionable sincerity on a lot of his topics. He was a very complex, sort of interesting guy, and I would also recommend as well, I may have mentioned this last time before, I don't know as well, but really listen to any of the Reality Report episodes on Jamie Gillis talking about, his recordings that he did, in the 70s, and some of the other episodes I did on him. There's actually a whole article that I wanted to read that I bookmarked, or at least I thought I bookmarked, maybe not. Maybe not. I can probably still Google it, about his On the Prowl series and stuff, and his filmmaking at this time, wanting to do really kind of different, more boundary pushing work. But yeah, what I was talking about before, I watched a little bit of On the Prowl. And Back on the Prowl 4, I watched a little bit of, and I say a little bit, I mean, when it comes to the actual act themselves, the physical acts, I mean, it's kind of the same way that I watch a lot of these adult films, that I'm more kind of into the content around the physical acts themselves, man. I'm more into the acting and the story and the dialogue, how they direct a lot of it, rather than, I mean, the physical acts are what they are. I'm far less interested in those, so I'm watching this as well, and listening to the way that Jamie kind of bounces off a lot of these other people, and sort of the dialogue that he chooses to put forward, and it's all very, it's all spur of the moment, it's all improvised to a certain extent, where they haven't, they talk about having an idea of what they're going to do on these tapes, but then once, they actually start going ahead and, like, doing it, it's a lot of Jamie, really spur of the moment. You kind of get that feeling from reading a lot of this, because a lot of really redundant, repetitive sort of actions, sort of like a lot of lines, a lot of sentences are repeated again and again, but it's sort of like, when you're watching it, it's one thing, reading it is another. And I also ended up watching a little bit of, I skimmed, like, Walking Toilet Bowl 2, some of the scat stuff that he was doing, that was one that was transcripted in this, and I ended up watching like a handful of that. I didn't sit down and watch all of it for time restraints, and also just more so kind of getting a feel of how Jamie was doing a lot of this dialogue, man. And I always say dialogue, I don't mean it's like script or anything like that. I mean, it is spur of the moment, but I'm just, hopefully I'm explaining that well. I'm still fairly tired from last night, so I do apologize. I'm not totally explaining myself well, but hopefully you get a good idea of what I mean. But either way, there's just some great passages from Jamie's writing in here. There is also, when I mentioned before through Alto Report, that I don't know what the updates are on this, but they were talking about, they were in possession of Jamie's unfinished autobiography, I think. I don't know if it was unfinished or it wasn't totally put together. That, I don't remember. But if you're curious to learn more about that, I recommend just reading some of those articles, listening to some of those podcast episodes. I think they're going to do a far more stronger sort of look at a lot of his work, and a far more intellectual look than I could. They're far more knowledgeable. They knew the man, that this is their bread and butter. I'm just a fan who happens to own this and happens to kind of base my own opinions on just that. I'm by no means an expert on any of this. I'm just a fan. So, but either way, feralhouse.com. You can go ahead and grab this if need be, or if you want to be like me and try to find a copy in the wild, go for it, man. If I had known this was available, I may have purchased this earlier, but glad that I held out and found this fairly by accident, which I mean, not by accident, but I happened to stumble across it when I was in Ohio a couple weeks ago, so that was just totally great to hear. And it's in fairly good condition, too. I mean, a couple marks here and there, but hey, nothing major, it's just really great to own this, man. I hope to come across more Peter Sotos stuff. Really, really enjoy his writing. How he writes, he's very much his own voice, and he's very, very unique amongst some like very kind of taboo and maybe untouchable subjects that people maybe wouldn't want to talk about or whatever. But very, very excellent stuff nonetheless. One of my favorite things I've read this year. And speaking of which, it was great because I opened up Spotify the other day and I see that they now allow audiobooks for free, and that was totally fantastic, man. I was aware that they had audiobooks on there, but now they are, I think, all for free to my knowledge. And I'm already getting recommendations for various audiobooks. So it's just so fantastic, man. I'm like almost overwhelmed. I'm like, what do I want to listen to first? And it's great because, I've mentioned before that because I work primarily on my own, my day is filled with nothing but podcasts and music and anything to sort of further my interests in that regard. And these audiobooks are going to be just a welcome addition, man. It's just so fantastic at some of these, but you're probably not going to find Peter Sotos stuff on there. I'm just saying, man, you got to, which actually might be better because, I do love the way that Peter talks about his, or narrates his writing, I should say, because I do want to find that one that I had mentioned before, that, not Buyer's Market, but the other one that I always forgot the name of. And will I find it here? Probably not. It's difficult to try to find some of his work online without coming across like 100 videos that are just sort of like, talking about it. Let's see here. I think this is it. I don't want to play any of it because I might get in some copyright trouble for that. But that's what it is. Proxy. That's the one. I saw somebody added Buyer's Market to Spotify. I'm like, who the hell did that? And yeah, I would definitely recommend. I mean, you can get an idea of sort of his the way he goes about his writing, or the way he talks about his writing, I should say, with Proxy. Very excellent stuff. I talked about that a little while ago. I talked about that. I talked about Buyer's Market. It is, that's a whole other conversation that I don't have enough time to go into yet. So I'm going to go ahead and end this right here. Got a couple minutes left, so I will wrap it up right here before I get into another topic that I just won't have enough time to go into. So thank you guys so much for listening yet again. Have a fantastic rest of your day. There's so much to get accomplished. There's so much writing, so much reading, so much to do. So you must be in control of your own life and do what you want to do and get the job done. It's very important to do that because you're going to wake up one day and wonder why it never got done. Well, I'll tell you why it didn't get done, because you're not doing it right now. All right, you guys take care, man. I appreciate you listening, and I'll be back next time.